But I'm excited to be here and bring birds into the conversation. So this presentation is going to be about Tracy Aviary's community science bird monitoring project at Utah Lake. So just a little introduction. My name is Angie Trumbo, and I am the Director of Conservation at Tracy Aviary. And if you're not familiar with us, we have kind of three main branches of our work. The first being our aviary in Liberty Park in Salt Lake City, which we're proud to be the second largest but oldest aviary in the nation. We also have a sister campus that's the Nature Center at Pio that is on the Jordan River, and it's kind of our community-based nature center that provides habitat and green space for wildlife and for our community members as well. And the third arm of our work is the conservation department, which is done. It doesn't have a location. We do work throughout the area. A lot of it is focused on the Jordan River, and it starts at Utah Lake North Shore and goes all the way to the Great Salt Lake Shorelands Preserve, where we do bird monitoring, we do banding, we do MODIS work, we have S-box monitoring surveys and window collision surveys, and we do habitat restoration, mostly focused around the Nature Center. So there's a lot of things that we're doing out in the community that's focused on our local birds and habitats. So this Utah Lake project we've been doing, and this shows you kind of the location where our bird monitoring has been taking place. It started in 2020, and you can see we selected 8 survey points at the along the North Shore Trail at Utah Lake, where we've been conducting surveys. There's 2 types of surveys that we do there, depending on the type of year that it is. So during the breeding season, which is April through July, when birds are active, they're singing, they're claiming territory, that's when we conduct point count surveys at those 8 points. And point count surveys are where we navigate to a very specific GPS point, and we're doing a 6-minute survey where we record every single bird that we identify by both sight and sound, and we take measurements as to the direction and distance from the point. And it really gives us that kind of geospatial idea of how the birds are using this habitat, how dense the populations are, and kind of what that breeding behavior is looking like. But then through the non-breeding season, when birds tend to be a little quieter and we're getting different birds moving through with different strategies, we do transect surveys monthly throughout that whole survey area. So it's not tied to specific points, but it does give us an idea of the types of birds that are in the area, and how that changes throughout the seasons and how they're utilizing that habitat at different times of year. So since this project began in 2020, we've conducted 28 rounds of breeding season surveys. We've done 36 non-breeding surveys and 18 other surveys, which include things like trainings for our breeding season surveys, as well as owl surveys that we'll do in the evenings, and Christmas bird counts and things like that as well. So just to share some of the results that we've gotten from these surveys, we have detected 167 unique species just in that small area on the North Shore of Utah Lake. And this shows you in this pie chart kind of a breakdown of all the different types of birds, kind of what those 167 species are made up of. And birds are really useful for us as a monitoring tool to have a feel for the health of the ecosystem. They're indicator species. They're easy to observe, and they're very sensitive to changes. So as we look at this makeup of the bird population in this area, that gives us really useful information about how the overall site is doing. And you can see different groups of birds, say like raptors or flycatchers in particular, that are key indicators of kind of how that food web is doing. They're insect eaters, they're meat eaters. So you have to have a full healthy food chain in order to support healthy populations of those types of birds. So that's just one of the pieces of information that we're gathering through this study. It can also tell us how the site varies throughout our different survey points there. So this particular map is showing species richness, which is the total number of species at any of those given points where we are doing those point count surveys. So you can see the species richness increases as you get closer to the shoreline, which makes sense. You have a couple of different types of habitats coming together there where you'll have a greater diversity of birds. But even in those areas further away, there's still some diversity in the number of birds that are supported at those other points. And that kind of indicates to us that we can maybe dig in like that point 2 there. Why does it have fewer birds than maybe the ones around it? And that can help us kind of investigate these questions and make management suggestions for the folks who are managing that land to see if there's ways we can really boost the habitat to support a greater diversity of species. And we can also look at things like trends over time. So this is showing species richness during the non-breeding season. So you can see kind of that peak species richness in August, September when birds are getting ready to migrate, with the lowest dip in December, January with the overwintering species as it starts to pick up again before the breeding season. We can also see there's a lot of variation year to year. So we can take a look at this with how it compares to weather patterns or other things that might be going on in that space that might influence how one year might vary from the norm across those time frames. We can also take a look at species individually and see how their population are changing over time. So these charts here are for a few specific species that we've looked at, and how the number of detections per survey has changed over time. So you can see Franklin's gulls have decreased significantly since we started doing the breeding season surveys in 2021. But at the same time, red-winged blackbirds have done kind of the opposite. And so that can kind of show, if we collect this data throughout time while we're doing a lot of these restoration and management things with the lake, we can see how those are impacting birds and whether their populations are changing the way we would expect them to or not. As the habitat changes, like if we remove Russian olives, how is that going to affect the birds and how many are in a given space? Because they are an invasive tree, but they also provide habitat and food. So looking at how that might cause some growth or decrease in populations in the short term versus the long term. So you can see just some different trends with different species there. And if we collect data over more years, that'll show kind of clearer trends and let us kind of see some of those impacts more. We also can compare Utah Lake North Shore to other sites where we're doing these same surveys to see how it compares to other locations along the Jordan River the watershed area, everything in between there and the Great Salt Lake. So you can see here, comparatively, North Shore is a really great location for both overwintering and migratory birds stopping through, and kind of is similar to some of our other larger sites like Big Bend. We also have the Shorelands Preserve on there. So it's providing a lot of really important habitat and can also help us set goals for other sites that are maybe not as far along in restoration efforts and boosting those numbers a little bit with management techniques. So a really important part of this project, all of this data that can inform a lot of decisions and care for these habitats, all of that aside, is that this is a community science project. And community science is often referred to more as citizen science, but it's basically just getting members of the general public involved in scientific data collection and contributing to meaningful research. And so our project has involved, since it began, 200 volunteers in our non-breeding season surveys, 18 in our breeding season surveys, and 130 that have joined us for other surveys. And overall, that adds up to over 1,000 hours that have been contributed to this program. And that has helped us reach far more areas and do far more surveys than we could with just our 3 ecologists by ourselves. It really helps us expand that impact. But all of that impact aside, one of the biggest benefits of community science is the transformative impact that it has on the people who participate in it. We aim with this project to create a more scientific, to increase the scientific skills and knowledge of our community members and build really important support and advocacy for these natural spaces and for the wildlife that rely on them. So as I was preparing for this, I pulled aside a few of our volunteers who've been participating in this program for a while just to ask them a few questions about their experience being a part of this project. And so the first one I was curious about is how they got started. And it was interesting to see a wide range of people. What's funny is I've heard a lot of comments about people saying like, ooh, Utah Lake doesn't have a good reputation. But amongst birders, there were a lot of people who were like, ooh, Utah Lake, like we want to go check that out. So when we started the survey, we had a bunch of our regular birders who kind of showed up to explore a new area. But we've also ran into a lot of people who have just enjoyed Utah Lake on its own and ran into one of our ecologists on the survey and decided this would be a really fun way for them to kind of interact with the space in a different way as they joined us on our birding surveys. And so a really wide range of reasons for people to get involved here. And the next thing I asked them for was something memorable that happened. These kind of experiences where people are out contributing through community science, but having experiences that are truly meaningful to them and build kind of that deeper connection that what do you call it? I can't think of the word at the moment, but just building that connection to the space and the birds they share it with. So I had some interesting stories here about people running into birds, seeing baby birds. Everyone loves baby birds, so it's exciting to see those here. But also there were some comments, numerous comments about people wading in like knee-high water to get to points and things like that. And sometimes putting in that hard effort, having to climb fences or navigate really difficult paths, that really putting in that work builds that connection and that care for a space because you've really put some of your heart and soul and hard work into it. And the last thing I asked folks was how volunteering has changed their relationship with Utah Lake. So I've put a few direct quotes from volunteers on here because I feel like they say it best. But what really stood out to me is first, how this really emphasized the importance of this place to a lot of people. I think you hear a lot in the news and in the community about like, oh, Great Salt Lake's so important. It's so important, and it is. But I think Utah Lake kind of takes a backseat to that sometimes because it's just not the top of mind lake in the area. But through participation in this program, people have really learned just how valuable it is, just how important it is, and just how beautiful it is. What a great resource it is to our community and to our the bird communities that we share it with. People also contributing and noticing trends over time. When they've volunteered with us year over year, they can see the impacts of water levels, of urban development and things, and how that has changed the birds. Like some of them, they'll have seen birds years in the past and they don't see them anymore. And that really indicates to them, um, excuse me, those helps them be more aware of those actions and behaviors that we have and the impacts they have on the environment and encourages them to take action to protect them. Um, yeah, this one particularly I thought was notable about taking action to protect that land and knowing all these things that influence it. So it's been really great to see how our volunteers have created this really great group of advocates for this space and share that with others. A lot of them will bring their friends out birding in this area as well, just to share what they love so much about this space. So if any of this sounds like fun to you all, I have added a QR code. If any of you would like to join us as a community science volunteer, it's open to folks of all levels. You can be a brand new birder, or you can be an experienced birder. We have roles and opportunities available to everyone. So feel free to scan that QR code if you'd like to see our volunteer page. But also if you'd like to reach out to us for information about how our data can help inform a lot of this work that's going to be happening at the lake, feel free to reach out to us at conservation@tracyaviary.org or to see about any partnerships or things that we can do to be a part of protecting this important resource. So thank you so much. And also thank you to those who've supported our work.